Hey everybody, Alonzo here with Gulf Coast Smoke. Today we're hanging out at the house, I'm cutting the grass, and we're working on a competition rib recipe. So one of the things we got coming down the line on June 18th is we do have another competition. If you guys remember our last competition, we did end up getting 8th overall out of 43 teams, and we got a 4th place ribs. We got a final table on chicken, nothing on brisket. So today we are practicing ribs, but we will be practicing chicken and brisket coming up. If you guys are interested in seeing how we do that, if you want to see a video on that, just let me know in the comments below. So today will be a little more complex than some of my other videos because I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more detail why I'm trimming a certain way, why I'm setting up the Weber Smoky Mountain a certain way, why we're putting what we're putting in the wrap, etc. So today we are practicing. We're going to try something a little bit different than we did at the competition. We got a 4th place ribs, but I just want to make sure that I'm testing all the flavor profiles I can with our seasonings and with specific wraps out there. So now I want you guys to come on in. I'm going to show you guys what we're going to do with this trim. I trim aggressively when it comes to these ribs. So you're going to see me take a lot of the meat off of there. Everything I do, just as always, you guys make it your own. You don't have to trim like this. This is just the way I like to do it. And I'll tell you why I'm trimming like this as well. So with these ribs, I'm basically looking at the middle 5 bones that I'm going to turn in. I like to smoke 3 racks. I give myself an option of 15 different ribs. Hopefully 9 of them are going to look very, very similar. They're going to be very, very good, and that's what I'm going to turn into the judge. So come on in, let's take a look at these ribs. Then we're going to head outside to the Weber Smoky Mountain. I'll show you guys why I'm setting that up a specific way. We'll get these smoked, we'll get them wrapped, we'll take them out, sauce them, we'll taste them, and we'll talk about everything in between. Okay, so the first thing I do when I go to the store is I do look for the Smithfields. There's a couple different types. These are going to work out great, and I really, really like the way these turn out. So this is what I use in competition. You can see the price isn't too bad, $9.87 there. And like I said, I don't go too crazy. I don't get the Compart Durox or anything like that. I know a lot of people swear by them, but these work great for us. On the back, what I'm looking for is these bones. I'm trying to see how straight they are. My son is telling me that he's done with his apple juice, so if you hear that, that's what he's doing. So here I'm looking at these bones. You can see up to about here, they're pretty straight, and obviously always on this side they start angling. I'm not too worried about that. I see a pretty decent amount of straight bones here, and I'm just trying to get the rack that I pick out as straight as possible because I do want these ribs to be uniform. Okay, so backside of these ribs, the first thing I'm gonna do is this flap right here. I like to get it off. I like to get it as parallel to the bones as I can and get this meat off. And boom. Okay, so now that I'm already here, I make sure to feel these bones, right? Like I said, these are angled. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut off this so I can try and square it up as best as possible. So if you look at the front side of these ribs, you'll see that there's most of the time this little piece right here that has a lot of fat in between. So this is like the rib meat, and then there's fat in between that goes and separates from the actual rack we're working with. So I like to take that off, and I come back over here, take off this first rib. So I'm not having too much of that exposed fat there. I also want to go through, trim it a little bit. And just like with everything I do, you guys take this with a grain of salt. Everybody is different. This is not the only way to do it. I definitely do it this way, and I'm going to continue doing it this way. And I'm not going to tell you guys what I'm going to do and not actually do this in competition. But regardless, do everything, test it out, see if you like it. If you don't, obviously you can do things a different way. So there's a little bit here that I want to take off. And other than that, this rack looks good to me. So the only other thing I want to do is make sure to pull this membrane. What I like to do is just try and find a few bones over here, grab it with a paper towel, get my finger under, yank it off. It's pretty simple. I actually learned this little trick from Swine Life. I used to go on the edges over here, and I used to pull from one side only, but you know, he made a good point. If you pull from the middle, you release a little bit from both sides, and you can get it off a little bit easier. So shout out to Swine Life Barbecue for that little tip. You know, you can always learn something from a bunch of other people out there, and I have found that that one works pretty good for me as well. So you're gonna see a lot of fat right here. You see that? See that fat that was under the membrane? That's why we like to take the membrane off, because number one, we want to get that fat out of here when we're looking at a competition rib, or at least I do, okay? Like I said, take everything I'm doing with a grain of salt, and you guys do things how you want. I'm just showing you how I do it, and if you think that this is a little tedious, it definitely is, but you got one bite to impress that judge, and you want to make it count. You want to make sure that everything you're doing, you're giving yourself the best opportunity. So I'll clean this up just a little bit, and that's looking much better. Okay, so now that I got the ribs trimmed up exactly the way I want them, it's time to head out to the Weber Smoky Mountain and get that thing rocking and rolling. When I'm smoking ribs, I'm only using my Weber Smoky Mountain. I don't use any other cookers for them. I've just found my best results on there. If you guys have any other smoker that you're using, just follow along with the temps that I'm talking about. Make sure you got that good, clean smoke, and that's going to be important today. So that's why we're starting a little bit earlier on the Weber Smoky Mountain before we get these seasoned up, because I've noticed it takes me about 30 or 45 minutes in order to make sure that I'm getting a nice thin blue smoke with my Weber Smoky Mountain. And you guys already know that that's extremely important. We don't want a bitter tasting smoke. We want to get a lot of smoke flavor from that Weber Smoky Mountain, and we want to make sure that it's running well. So let's head outside. We're going to get that thing ready, and then about 30 minutes before I'm ready to put the ribs on, we'll season these up. Okay, we're out here at the Weber Smoky Mountain. My wife and I are right here. My son is right here. He might be talking the whole time. My bad. So I like to put chunks towards each of the vents, right? So I put 2 here because that kind of equals like the size of a normal chunk. So from here, I'm going to fill the rest of it up with some lump charcoal. We're going to dig out a little hole here so we can put our charcoal starters. Get that lit up. So from here, I like to let this go just for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to put the barrel on. So the other thing that I do is I shut down 2 of the vents in the back all the way, right? And the reason I do that is because right now, like I said earlier, it's hot outside, and I know that this is going to get to temp and it's going to hold pretty well with no issues. So what I'm going to do on the front is I'm going to do this halfway, and that's where we're going to start. So me personally, I prefer for the temp to be lower rather than higher. I find it's easier to get the temperatures up rather than back them off. So if I start at 225, that's okay. I'll open the vents and I can adjust from there. So I don't like to have all the vents open in the beginning. And like I said, that's just because where we live, it's hot, the wind is kind of crazy, and I don't want that fire to be going off in there. So let's go ahead and wait a couple of minutes, then I'll put the barrel on and we'll let this thing get to smoking. Alright, now we got the barrel on, and we're going to let this thing climb up to temp. If I need to adjust the vents, I will here in a little bit. Like I said, I'm just going to let this run for at least 30 minutes. Make sure that that smoke is thin and blue when we get to 275 degrees. Now, let's get this seasoned up. First things first, hit it with a binder. Yellow mustard, 1 line is good enough. This is not for flavor. This is literally just to help that rub adhere to the meat. And again, you guys can use oil. You guys can use Worcestershire sauce. You guys can use butter. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but this is the way we do it, and we like it. So we're going to keep rocking with it. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this with Gulf Coast Smokes Southern Belle. I'll put a link in the description if you guys are interested in trying this. And the reason I'm going to do that is because this is savory. It's got some pepper in there, and I think it's going to be a great base layer for these ribs. Now, keep in mind, where I'm at in Texas, I'm going to season these differently for sure. So I'm in South Texas. They like heavier smoke, and from what I've seen, they like a little more pepper. I've talked to some of the guys on the competition circuit. They somewhat agree with me. So I'm going to sometimes go a little bit heavier here or with hospitality, and you guys have to make sure that you're always testing stuff like that. You know, I am very new to the competition circuit, but I've talked to a lot of different guys, and that's one of the things they stress to me all the time. You could win first place ribs with a specific recipe. Next week, go somewhere else, do the exact same thing, and not even get a call. So always keep that in mind. Depending on where you are, you might want to switch things up. So now, I'm going to go with Southern Hospitality. This is our sweet version. Again, this will all be in the description if you guys are interested. This and our next rub that I'll show you is award-winning. We entered it into the best rub on the planet, the American Royal, and we got 33rd with this, and we got 21st with our hot version. So you guys know you're getting a great quality product if you try this out. Now I'm going to go heavy. I'm going heavy with Hospitality. One of the things that I want to make sure is that I cannot see any of that yellow mustard at all. And you guys can see that's a really, really nice color there. Pat it in. Do not rub it. Just pat it in. And I'm going to leave this to sweat for about 5 minutes before I turn it over. I want to make sure that the rub tacks up a little bit, sticks to that meat. We don't want to flip it over and for all of it to run off. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes later, it's not completely sweated out, but if I move the ribs around, you're noticing that that rub isn't completely shaking everywhere, and that's really all that I want. So the bottom side and the top side do get a little bit different of a treatment, so we'll show you what we're going to do over here. So here again, mustard, rub that in. Looking good. We're going back over with Southern Belle. You guys can see those pepper granules are thicker. That's really nice around the Texas area. That's the way people like it. And now we're going over with Southern Hospitality, which, like I said, got 21st overall best rub on the planet. This stuff is really good. It'll take your rib game to the next level. Heavy coat. Heavy coat. Same thing. We do not want to see any of that yellow mustard. We want to let that beautiful color shine through. So now we'll wait a little bit longer here. This is going to be about 30 minutes before we put these on, and these are going to sweat out a little bit, then they'll be ready to rock and roll in the Weber Smoky Mountain. Okay, so the temps are right where I want them. So now what I'm going to do, if you remember, the bottom vent is only halfway open and the other two are completely closed. Like I said, that's just for me testing this plenty of times. I know how it's going to react. Like I said, it's a hot day outside with a lot of wind, so I just know what I need to do. You guys need to cook on your Weber Smoky Mountain plenty. If I was to give you some tips, I would say start with all three of them open. Do the same thing I did in order to get the fire started, and then you can adjust your vents as you need. If it's getting too hot, close one down. If it's still getting too hot, close the other one down and crack the other one halfway. You're just going to have to mess with it, but that's what I would say. Keep them all open. See how your temps are going. If they're climbing high really, really fast, start closing vents down until you get your desired temperature. The last thing I'm going to do, you can see the smoke very, very thin. You can hardly see it at all. I'm going to put these vents right here up top halfway, and I'm completely done messing with it the rest of the way through. When the Weber Smoky Mountain gets good, it stays there, and you're not going to have to mess with it at all. So, just to let you know also, I have nothing in the water pan. We will apply spritz as needed, if needed. So, you also want to get this rack, and you want to make sure to kind of push it together, make sure that the meat is plumped up in between those bones, because the way you put this on is the way it's going to cook. I'm sure you guys have heard that plenty of times. Try and be quick. And like I said, from here, it's time to be very tactical with what we're doing. 45 minutes from now, we're going to check these, make sure they haven't gotten too dark, make sure there's no dry spots. If there is, we're gonna spritz them. We're probably gonna spritz them no matter what, because when it comes to competition ribs, that red color is extremely important. We don't want to lose that. So in 45 minutes we'll be back. I'm gonna cut the grass a little bit. The grass is high, I don't want you guys to see it, but I'll get that taken care of in between now and then, and we'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Okay, 45 minutes later, the grass is cut. I'll show you that real quick, and it's time to check these ribs. So let's go ahead and open the Weber Smoky Mountain. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is look right here. Look at these vents. You literally cannot see any smoke coming out. That's exactly what you want. That's what we mean when we say that thin blue smoke. But let's take a look at these ribs. 45 minutes in. Okay, they're looking really good. I love that color. Honestly, there's still some pretty good moisture there, but I do not want that color to change and darken. So let's hit it a little bit. This is 50-50 apple cider vinegar and water, and I either use that or just 100% water. Today we decided to throw the apple cider vinegar in there. Again, we're testing out this recipe. We do want to try out a few different things, see how it turns out. But these are looking great. We'll check them in another 45 minutes. Hour and a half in, wardrobe change, cut the grass, and I was super hot and dirty, so I changed up. But let's take a look at these ribs. You'll see nothing's changed. Still nice, clean smoke. Ribs looking good, color's good. Tapping the ribs here, nothing's coming off, so let's go ahead and wrap these. So we came inside to wrap these ribs, accidentally forgot to get the footage on us actually putting stuff inside the wrap, so I'll tell you exactly what we did. So you'll see over here on this side, there's some black stuff that actually comes out from the bones that I like to concentrate on and I like to take off, because we want these ribs to look as good as possible. So even though it seems tedious, I definitely think it's worth doing that. Now what I did was I used some Parquet squeeze. I put that on the foil with some brown sugar, and then I put Southern Hospitality on the bottom. Then I put the meat down on that. So if you remember, we put Hospitality on the top layer of meat. That's why we did it that way. On the back side, I used some more Parquet squeeze, some more brown sugar, and then Southern Hospitality. That's the sweet version of our rub. That's why we put it on the back side. So we're matching rubs top and bottom. Sorry about not getting that footage, but I honestly believe that this is the, I don't want to say least important part of it, but I don't necessarily need to show you everything here. I could tell you, and it's the same exact thing. So again, don't forget, some of that blood that comes out of these bones, you'll notice that it's black. Kind of looks like that. Pull it off the bones, and I know it's tedious, but I think it's important to get that off because we do want a good looking rib. So what we'll do is we're going to wrap these up. We're going to put them back on the Weber Smoky Mountain. We'll check these in an hour and a half to see what the pullback looks like. And that literally just means that the meat is pulling away from the edge of the bone. And that's where you're going to see the bone exposed on either one side or both. We'll go ahead and do that. In the meantime, we're going to keep hanging out. Maybe get some footage of some other stuff going on at the house. We'll be back in a little bit. Finally try these ribs. Okay, so it's been an hour since we wrapped them and put them back on the smoker. So now we'll take a look at them together, and I'll let you know what I'm looking for. If it's time to take them inside and sauce them, we'll do that, bring them back out, let the sauce tack up. Then of course, it's finally time to eat. Lots of moisture and liquid in there. I could tell you that they're not done, but we'll take a check anyway. Actually, they don't feel bad. I'm not gonna lie.
Girls.
Well, I thought they weren't gonna be done, but they do feel good. So I'm actually gonna call it. I'm gonna say, let's take these off, take them inside, and let's get these ready to go ahead and put some sauce on them. So I actually do check the internal temps. I'm looking for anywhere around 205, 210, but obviously I want it to feel good. That's what I'm basically looking for. So these feel great. You can see it slides in, no resistance. We're 206 there. The smaller part of it, I'm sure we're going to be a little bit more. Yeah, so 212 a little bit over there, but it's going to be okay. Let's take these inside and get some sauce on them. Alright, so first things first, now that we're back inside, we want to get these ribs. We want to flip them over. Let some of that liquid fall off. You can see that the color looks great for sure. I like that it's red everywhere. Obviously that's the biggest thing. You want a beautiful looking rib. You obviously want it to taste good as well. So first thing we're going to do is I have some sauce here that I warmed up. This is Head Country apple habanero. We're going to put it all over these. The reason you warm it up is because if you don't, you'll be able to see the brush marks on your ribs, and you definitely do not want that. So always warm it up. Get the sides, make sure everything looks good and is hit with that sauce. Evenly distributed. Awesome. So from here, I will hit it with a little more seasoning. Nice. So now I'm just gonna fold this in, make that foil boat that a lot of people talk about, honestly. And we'll take these right back out to the smoker exactly like this and just let that sauce tack up. Then it's time to eat. Okay, so right at 4 hours later, these ribs are done. So just to give you a quick recap of what we did today. I showed you guys a competition recipe that we're working on. We're trying to perfect, and hopefully we can get a first place soon. Last time we did this, we got 4th place, so I do know that it's a good recipe. We might have just missed it on a few different marks. So with my Weber Smoky Mountain, I showed you how I set it up. I put charcoal, I used lump charcoal today, all at the bottom in the ring. I light the middle, let it go for about 5 minutes, and then I put the barrel on. I specifically close 2 of my vents down and crack one of them 50% because, like I said, it's hot right now, it's humid, there's a lot of wind, so I know that that's what I need to do in order to get 275. I let the Weber Smoky Mountain run for at least 45 minutes before I put any meat on it, because in the beginning I do see a lot of that white smoke that you don't want. You want that wood to start smoldering, get a nice fire in there in order to see that blue smoke or that thin blue smoke. Virtually you see nothing, but that's what you want. Keep in mind also, the thermometer on top of the Weber Smoky Mountain is not always accurate. I would say it's probably not accurate more than it is. So mine's 25 degrees off. I know that. I've tested it for a while, and I keep that in mind every single time that I'm cooking. So I used Southern Belle, Southern Hospitality, and Southern Hospitality today. I used a sweeter rub on the bottom with a spicier rub on top, and I think that's going to make for a great, great bite. We used Head Country apple habanero sauce to top this off, and I'll show you right now how we're going to finish off this cook. We'll take a look at the ribs together. Hopefully we have a nice smoke ring, some nice moisture. I showed you guys the ribs already. They look great, so hopefully all the other marks hit. Come on in, let's finish this video up. Okay, so ribs look beautiful, glaze is set, we want to cut these and we want to cut them correctly. One thing that I have a problem with, I'm not gonna lie to you, is cutting ribs because the bones, sometimes they twist, sometimes they turn. It is not easy. So what I'll do here, I'll pick this rack up. I still have some of my sauce here, and we're just gonna lay it down on the cutting board. And I actually like using these cutting boards for it. These are the disposable ones. I think they work great for this. You just throw them away right after. So we put down a layer of the sauce. Place the rib right there on top. Then we'll slice. Cutting really well. These right here are the bones that I'm looking at. The ribs that I'm looking at to possibly turn in. Turn them over. Let's check one of them. See if there's some moisture. That looks really, really good. Nice smoke ring. Rib still looks super tender. Turn this over. Now I'll go just back over real quick. Make sure that that paint looks good. And that looks really, really good. So what I will do in the end as well is I'll get some sauce and I'll paint the inside on both sides. And that rib is ready to put into a box. That looks really good. I'm happy with it. Let's just see how it tastes. Cheers. That's perfect. Bite through. I mean, I might be biased, but that's, I mean, I don't know what else you want in a rib. I'll bite another one just to make sure. Yeah, that tastes very good. The one thing I will say, the rib's sticking a little bit to the bone there, and I don't want that. So I think that I just need to go a little bit longer with it, but overall, I mean, the flavor is there. Flavor is outrageous. I mean, layering the Southern Belle, Southern Hospitality, you get the savory, you get sweet, you get spicy. Of course, that brown sugar and that parquet just makes it amazing. So I have no complaints here with this rib. In all honesty, the only thing, like I said, is the rib sticking to the bone ever so slightly. I mean, this is probably 20 minutes from being perfect. So just keep those things in mind. And you know what? In all honesty, I would still obviously turn this in. I would have to. And I think that this would have a decent shot. Now, you still get the bite through on the rib, but, you know, like I said, the one thing that worries me is that the bone, it's sticking a little bit to the bone, the meat is. Not the hugest deal ever, but I guarantee you I could have gone 25, 30 more minutes and they would have been perfect. So, obviously, I'm not always perfect. I would turn these in no matter what. I know they would taste great. It would just depend if the judge is going to be harsh on me for that meat sticking to that bone a lot, but it is what it is. I hope you guys learned something in this video. I like doing videos like this, you know, the long smoke sessions where I can get into detail about why I like to do what I do. These are always the funnest. It's obviously not always practical because I still have a day job, I have 3 kids, I have a wife, so we can't always get this going, but we try to as best we can. Let me know if you guys want to see how I do chicken, how I do brisket. I would say that this only needed a couple more minutes and it would have been perfect. Other than that, the flavor, outrageous. Try this combination of flavors out on your next ribs, and I honestly don't see how you couldn't love it. If you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe. And speaking of which, thanks so much for 2,000. My wife and I really love this channel. We put a lot of hard work into it, so it's great to see that you guys like it and the family is growing, and it just means a lot. So keep commenting, keep liking, keep sharing with other people that love to cook and love barbecue, and I think sky's the limit. So thanks for everything, guys. We really appreciate it. I'm going to keep devouring some ribs with my family. Hope you guys have an awesome week. Don't forget, have confidence in your cue no matter what. As always, I really appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Thanks. We'll see you on the next one.